All right, here's our last video of chapter 1. We're going to do examples 8 and 9 in section 1.8. We're going to talk about distributing and simplifying. So we've talked about order of operations, and now in these examples, we're going to add some variables into it. And we've talked about like terms in previous sections, right? Where they have to have the same exact stuff in order to be like terms. So when you're looking at example number 8 with me, I have a 5x minus 9 plus 2 times 4x plus 5. If I'm first thinking about order of operations, I notice parentheses. The problem is I can't take a 4x and add it to a 5 because they're not like terms. The 5 doesn't have an x next to it. So there's really nothing I can do inside those parentheses. But I do notice that there's a 2 right next to the parentheses, which symbolizes multiplication. And what that means is I want to make sure that I multiply 4x times 2 and the 5 times 2. So what I really want to do is I want to distribute. Multiply every term inside those parentheses by positive 2. I still have a 5x, I still have a negative 9, but now 2 times 4x is 8x, and 2 times 5 is 10. Now I have 4 separate terms that I can try to combine any like terms. I have a 5x and an 8x, those are like terms that I can combine, and I have a negative 9 and a positive 10. So combining my like terms, I really end up getting 13x plus 1. The 13x and the 1 are not like terms, so I can't put them together anymore. It looks like that would just be our final answer. So anytime I see a number in front of the parentheses where I can't simplify any more inside the parentheses, I want to make sure that I distribute that number through. So look at B. I notice that I have parentheses or brackets, but inside, I have an x squared and a 2x. Those aren't the same exact things, right? One of them is an x squared and the other one is just an x. So they're not like terms. So I can't really do anything inside the parentheses. But I do notice that I have a 3 that's right next to the parentheses, which means I really want to multiply everything in those parentheses by 3. I still have a 7x squared, but I want to distribute the 3 to the x squared. That gives me a 3x squared. And I want to distribute the 3 times the 2x. That gives me a 6x. Now I'm not going to distribute the 3 to the 5 because the 5x isn't inside the parentheses. So I'm just going to drop that term down just like it is in the back. Now I have 4 separate terms and I want to combine any like terms. It looks like I have a 7x squared and a 3x squared. Those are like terms. I can add those together. And I have a 6x and a negative 5x that I can add together. 7x squared plus 3x squared is really just a 10x squared. And a 6x minus a 5x is really just a 1x. Or an x if you don't want to write the 1 coefficient. We just know it's there. The 10x squared and the 1x are not like terms, so that would just be our final answer. All right, so let's think about what happens if the number in front is not a positive and maybe it's a negative. Well, what this really is, so for example, in example number 9, are opposites, or you can think of there being a negative 1 in front. If there is a negative 1 in front, then what I want to do is make sure that I distribute the negative 1, multiply every term inside the parentheses by negative 1. So negative 1 times 3x, negative 1 times 2y, and negative 1 times 4. Or you can think of it being the opposite. I want the opposite of positive 3x, which is negative 3x. I want the opposite of 2y, which is negative 2y. And I want the opposite of positive 4, which is negative 4. Really what that does is it changes the signs to every term inside those parentheses. If there are any like terms, we want to combine them. But in this problem, there aren't. The 3x, the 2y, and the 4 are different terms, so I would just leave it like that. But now look at B. Inside my parentheses, I can't really combine those terms because they're not like terms. But I do have a negative in front, or a negative 1 if you want to think of it that way. So I have a 3x, and then I have the opposite of 4x, which is negative 4x, and the opposite of positive 2, which is negative 2. Or what I really want to do is make sure that I distribute this negative 1 to every term inside the parentheses. But now look, I have a 3x and a 4x, which are like terms that I can combine. So 3x minus 4x is really a negative 1x, and then I have the minus 2 in the back. They're not like terms, so I can't do anything more with this problem. All right, look at C. I have a 5t squared minus 2t, and then I have the opposite of negative 4t, which is positive 4t, and the opposite of positive 9t, which is negative 9t, or distributing the negative 1 through. Now I want to see if there's any like terms. So it looks like I have a 5t squared and a 4t squared. Those have the same stuff, right? So I can say 9t squared. And then I have a negative 2t and a negative 9t, which really give me a negative 11t. They're not like terms, and so that would be our final answer. All right, let's do a few more. We're almost done here. Look at example number, what is this, 9D. Maybe you can pause the video and you can try a few of these on your own, making sure that you distribute and then combine like terms. All right, look at D here. I'm going to take this negative or opposite, negative 1, and I want to distribute it through. That gives me a 10x minus x squared minus x squared minus 12x. It's really important that you distribute it to everything. Some students make the mistake of distributing it to the first term and forget about the other term, so just be careful with that. Now, combining like terms, I have a negative 1x squared and another negative 1x squared, which is really a negative 2x squared, right? And then I have a 10x and a negative 12x, which is really a negative 2x. No like term, so that would be my final answer. All right, E. I can take this negative 2 and distribute it through. So I have a 3n, I have a negative 2 times 4n, which is a negative 8n, and I have a negative 2 times a negative 5, and remember, two negatives when I multiply make me a positive 10. I can combine like terms. I have a 3n and a negative 8n. That really gives me a negative 5n, and then I have a positive 10. Since they're not like terms, that would be my final answer. All right, my last one here. A little more complicated. Look, there's a small parenthesis, a round parenthesis, and then a bracket. But if you look inside this round parenthesis, there's really nothing else I can do. They're not like terms there. But I do notice that I have a 5 right next to it. And what I want to do with that 5 is make sure I distribute it through. So being careful and organized, I still have my 7x cubed. I still have my plus 2. I still have my minus and my brackets. But now inside these brackets, I have a 5x cubed and a minus 5. And then I have this positive 8 in the back. Now I didn't distribute the 5 to the 8 because the 5 or the 8 wasn't inside the parentheses that the 5 was in front of, right? But now I still have big old brackets. And inside these brackets, it looks like I have some like terms there. I have a regular 5, negative 5, and a positive 8. And since they're like terms, I should be able to combine those and really say that I have a 5x cubed plus 3 inside. Now again, be careful. I've got a negative 1 in front that I need to make sure that I distribute through. So I have a 7x cubed plus 2. The opposite of 5x cubed is negative 5x cubed, and the opposite of positive 3 is negative 3, or making sure I multiply everything by negative 1 in those parentheses. Okay, do we have any like terms? Well, it looks like I have a 7x cubed and a negative 5x cubed. That gives me a 2x cubed. And then I have a positive 2 and a negative 3, which gives me a negative 1. So it looks like my final answer here is 2x cubed minus 1. So be careful. Start at your inside parentheses, see if you can simplify any more. If not, distribute any numbers in front, and then combine your like terms. Again, making sure that you're very, 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 very organized is a key here.